that were on my level and that inspired me every day. To do my best, I needed them. And this applies also to democracy. There is no such thing as democracy without opposition. And opposition plays an important role in offering alternative solutions and amendments to bills that are presented. They can point out weaknesses, and they can ask the pertinent questions. They can demand accountability, which is another key word that I wanted to talk to you about. Due to the importance of the opposition, it is quite disappointing to see members of parliament who rush into the winning camp. We have seen it here, and we will see a few of them, I think, in Sweden as well. Because those of you who voted on these people, you voted for them because they stood for something, and the day after, all of a sudden, they stand for something else. So they have actually disappointed you. So they lost their vision for Kenya, or at least at the minimum, for what you thought that they would do for you. But I think these defections are much more common in Kenya due to the lack of parties that are founded on political philosophies. As university students, I believe that most of you have been familiarized with the schools of thought like socialism, liberalism, conservatism, nationalism, and so many other isms that we have out there. These political foundations usually give a hint on how the politicians who subscribe to them want to solve the problems of society. And particularly, and maybe most importantly, how the economic resources in the country should be divided. It makes it more difficult if you have subscribed to a political school of thought like that to all of a sudden jump ship and advocate for another way of doing it. Now, I wanted to wake you all up with a small poll to see how you see politics here. So let's assume, I don't know any of you, but let's assume that all of you have voted for a governor in your county. I believe you are from many different counties, so we are not making a poll on anybody here. But you think of your county and the candidates for governor there. And as it's quite close in time, I think you will remember that. And we presume that you voted, even if you didn't vote, so you will tell me how you thought about this. And I will give you 3 alternatives before, and then we will go back and we will make a show of hands, if you don't mind. So I wonder, what guided your decision on who to vote for? Was it number 1, the candidate who could do something for you personally? For example, give you a job, give you a bursary, provide water to your house, or something similar? Or 2, was it the candidate who could do something for your community? However you yourself define your community, the one that is important for you. It might be your village, it might be that you are the youth, it might be that you, for a gender, like for example the women, or it could be something like ethnicity. Or 3, did you vote for this candidate because the vision the candidate had for the development of your county? Did you get it? Is it clear? Okay. So let us see, just for a show of hands, for those who voted for the candidate who could do something for you personally. The one who could do something for your community. And the vision of the candidate who could, the candidate who had a vision for development of your county. Interesting. Still, it was many who didn't vote, apparently, who didn't dare to show their hands, but we accept it with that. So this is how you voted, and these are your expectations. So now the election is over, we can agree on that. Oh, everyone is sworn in, everyone is seated, everyone is starting. And we have 5 years before us, no? We agree on that as well. So, election is just the first step in the democratic process. Now comes the governance. For those of you who hoped for a personal favor, which was apparently nobody, I believe that those people who do that, and I know that there are many out there, they must be extremely lucky to get what they believe they were promised. Because how many can a governor employ? Let's say maybe he can employ 10 people. A personal assistant, a political advisor, a secretary, a driver, a chef, you know. Out of the several 100,000 who voted for him or her, how big is the chance that you would get that job? Probably very, very small. Unfortunately, a lot of people are tricked into that trap, that the governor would in some way employ them. For you who voted for your community, it will be somewhat easier. You can organize yourself in a group, like a group for the youth, if you think that was important for you. It could be a group of teachers, if you are a teacher and you think that your working conditions in school are important for you. You can be the inhabitants of a village, or a group of the disabled, or whatever category you classify yourself in. You can create an interest group, and you can examine the programs and the plans, and particularly the budget that this governor is proposing. Promises can seldom be held without money, and money is not infinite. Besides, the money is not theirs, but yours, because you are or will be the taxpayers. As Kenya is now indebted up to 60% of its national budget, all of you who haven't started to pay tax can be sure that you will have to pay for this in the future. So you have a great interest in to see how your money is actually handled. And there is, if 60% has to go to serve the debt, a great interest to use the remaining income for its true purpose. For you who voted for the whole county, which seems to be the majority of those who voted here, it might be easier on a personal level because you don't have so much invested in what you thought would happen to you. You look at the big picture and you have come to the understanding that the individual's future lie within the society. And I think you have the privilege to get a university education, and that's why probably the majority of you choose that option. The prosperity of the individual can rarely be improved without the uplifting of the whole society. Even if you are a very rich person in a sea of poverty, economic science show that countries with a very high inequality, or as it's called in economics, Gini coefficient, will not grow as fast and well as countries which are much more equal in income and rights. We can compare here Sweden and Kenya. Kenya has a Gini coefficient of 40.8, which is a high one, which marks a high inequality, while Sweden has a Gini coefficient of 29.3. So it means there is much less gap between the person who earns the most and the person who earns the least. Inequality is also very closely linked to corruption. As we all know, I don't think it's a secret, it's a prime issue in Kenya. In Transparency International, that you might know, who is an organization working against corruption and that Sweden is supporting in Kenya, in their ranking, Kenya is at the number 128, while Sweden is at a number of 4. So here we touch upon some key concepts in this when it comes to democracy and accountability. The former President Kenyatta acknowledged that 20% of the state budget disappeared into the wrong pockets. So we don't need to be Einstein here to make the math, the IEBC. If we know now that 60% of what you pay in taxes goes to serve your foreign debt, and also internal debt, and 20% goes to corruption, how much remains for the people? Anybody who has done mathematics? There we see the company leader can count his money. So, is that satisfying to anybody? No. Corruption is fed by 2 misconceptions. And that is that you vie for office, you're a candidate in election to enrich yourself, and you work in public service to get your piece of the pie. In a democracy and in a democratic society, that cannot be. That is not how it should be. Well, then comes the question, what can you do as a simple voter? It's often said that the people get the politicians they deserve. It means that we are all contributing to this. And it's up to the voter to really scrutinize the candidate, who is first candidate and thereafter politician, when once elected. Are their promises really realistic? Where will the money come to feed these promises? Can society function if nobody pays taxes and everyone gets no more benefits? Are the tenders that you see launched in your county realistic? Are the budgets realistic? Often the budgets are inflated to accommodate for corruption. There is a margin for bribes. And here I wanted to bring you back to Afghanistan. This painting is from Afghanistan, where I lived, and where corruption was a huge issue, like in Kenya. And I would say corruption played a very important role that the Taliban, which is a fundamentalistic Islamist group, managed to win the war. The politicians that were elected were so corrupt and they couldn't agree among themselves. They were fighting for every bit and piece, and they were not able to hold this together to stand up to the Taliban. But at the time when I was there, the Americans were still there. The country was functioning with this so-called democratic government, which was actually elected, but with also a lot of money involved. And there was an art collective called Art Lords. And in Kabul, the capital of Afghanistan, the whole city was full of these high blast walls. 6-meter high cement walls were protecting all the important buildings to protect it from bombs and attacks. So the whole city, particularly the center, was a maze of these blast walls that you were traveling through. You had walls 6-meter high on both sides of the street. And these art lords, they went out to paint these very ugly gray cement walls. with different messages. And this one you see here, here are the members who are painting this mural with the two eyes. And then there is a message in the local language diary which says, "We see you." This was a message to the politicians. Don't get away, we watch you. What you steal, what you take, what you do. So I wanted to bring it here. For me, it's a very dear memory of Afghanistan, and a very dear a sort of reminder of what we have to work on. So let us come back to ourselves. Let us come back to persons like me, and people like some of you might be in the future, because maybe somebody of you want to become a civil servant in the national government, in the county government, or somewhere else. So a civil servant is a state employee. I think it's a quite coveted job in Kenya generally. But the civil servant is and should be a very important person, and is playing an important role in the democracy. He or she has the duty to bring the facts to the politicians that have been elected to govern us. Unless the politician is a civil engineer, they would probably not know what a road or a school would cost. So it is the civil servant who should calculate this and who should bring the facts to the politician. The key feature of civil servant, and I use that when I choose who can work for me in the embassy I run, is integrity and good judgment. Because the civil servant should impartially inform our politicians and decision makers about the options and about the negative and positive consequences. An old manager of me, when I was much more junior, said to me, "We are the bearer of the truth and the reality to our minister." I was working in security policy there. At that time, my minister had a very specific vision of that, which did not really correspond to how the reality was around us. And we had to bring these very uncomfortable messages to her. It was not fun, I can tell you, but we felt that was, as civil servants, our duty. We could have said, "Yes, Mrs. Minister, this is how it is," because we knew what she believed. But that is not the duty of the civil servant. The civil servant must be able to stand up and to carry the message. And all the politicians need impartial civil servants to help them. That's why the civil servant should not be linked to the politician or the matter that's being treated. That's why the governor should not be able to choose 300 people working for him, even if it would make it maybe easier for him or her to keep the promise to all the electorate who thought that they would get a job. But if you are linked to that person, you are, have a conflict of interest. And that is something that civil servants should not have. They should not be linked to a tender. If there are a road, we take these roads as examples, and your uncle is working in one of the companies that have made a bid on this road, you should say, "Mr. Governor, I'm sorry, I step back. My uncle is in this company. I cannot participate in preparing this bid for your decision. My colleague here, who has no connection to these people, should do it." Unfortunately, that is not what is happening in Kenya. Many see this as, here passes the gravy train. Here, you know, the uncle gets this, I get something back. The road gets very bad and very expensive. And who is paying that? All of you. So, dear students, with that, you are the hope of Kenya. You belong to those privileged in this country who get a very good education. And you represent the biggest group in the Kenyan population, those between 18 and 35. By participating in democracy, by voting and demanding accountability, you are able to change this country to the better. Think as the society as something for the whole population and not only for yourself. If you find a job in public administration, become the role model for your colleagues. Refuse to participate in those games. If you may become a politician, and here I look at the student body because this is often a school for those who want to go into politics. Many of our politicians have actually started as student activists. If you become a politician, make the difficult decisions and refrain from the temptation. Become a politician if you want to serve, not if you want to enrich yourself. Then you should go into the business world. There, it's okay and should be like that people should enrich themselves because that's how they can make more investments. If you become a politician and you land in opposition, don't sit and sulk. Scrutinize and help those in power to do the right thing. The democracy comes from the people, and the people, that's you. Thank you very much. And now I promise to take some questions if you are interested, if you have any questions about anything. I would be happy to do so. There's somebody up there.
Okay, thank you. Permit me, first of all, to begin with a philosophical foundation of my presentation. Towards the end of 18th and 19th century, the greatest enemy of man was death. But in the beginning of 21st century, the greatest enemy of man is no longer death. The greatest enemy of man is man himself. Okay. First of all, let me congratulate your country because it has been ranked highly in several indexes. For example, in Index for Voice and Accountability, whereby this is a parameter which captures the perception of the extent citizens participate in electing their government, as well as freedom of expression, association, and free media. So 1996 to 2020, you scored an average of 1.757 and a minimum of 1.49 in 2004. Against a global of 2020 of minus 0.04 among the 193 countries. Okay, you have also talked about the ambassadors are charged with nurturing democracy around the world where you are based in. For example, in Spain, we have a controversy in northeastern Spain, a region called Catalonia, whereby it has rich history, whereby it merged with Spain in 1469. Before that, it was a Roman Empire. So, and in 2009, we had separatists, those who agitated for separation.
No.
And majority of them were jailed by the Supreme Court of Spain. So in your country and the European Union, what are you doing to restore that? And also, again, when we go to Myanmar, we have a leader who is jailed. But unfortunately, when she took power, she referred to Rohingya local people as terrorists. What is your comment on that? And, and again, we had a political turmoil in Ivory Coast in 2020, in 2010, whereby France installed one of the contested as the leader of that particular country. And again, in 2011, one of the greatest sons of Africa, a Pan-Africanist, was assassinated in 30th December 2006. So, and again, there were accusations against what he was doing. What is your comment on that? And again, we also have...
I think, sir, maybe we should have just allow others also to have questions. I think we went quite far back in history here. And when it comes to Spain, which is actually very, as you described it, there is a movement in Catalonia to separate themselves from the rest of the country. In the European Union, usually, we do not really enter into the positions of, or internal politics of other countries. I think the exceptions that we have made now is with Hungary and Poland, where there are some fundamental breaches of their own constitutions and of the rule of law as we see it in the European Union. And of course, separatists is always a topic in many countries, as well as in Spain, where a certain group in the country wants to have become an independent country, an independent region, etc. And I think the Spanish government at that time saw this as a fundamental threat against the whole country, that the country could risk to split up, and wanted to avoid that. And one can also ask oneself sometimes about these very small parts of a country that wants to get an independence, how viable they are, how can they sustain sort of a state budget, sustain their population, etc. So I think that was a risk that one saw as well. With the Myanmar, I think you know there has been a true condemnation of the country's way of treating the Rohingyas, and it has been done in the Security Council, it has been done by the European Union. We have had main interventions in Myanmar to try to both help the Rohingyas in different ways to at least have something like a survival mood, so I would say. And as you know, the Nobel laureate, Sun Yun Kin, has now lost the trust, I think, of the world in the way she has handled the affairs of Myanmar. I must say the Ivory Coast in 2006, was it? I'm not really familiar with that particular incident, but maybe we can discuss that afterwards. Yes.
Thank you very much. I would appreciate the way you have given us your lecture. In ways you can relate, because when you say, if you become a politician, be a politician to serve, not to enrich yourself. Democracy is not a house, which I took you cannot just build and live there.
No.
Now, my question is, that with all the rating, Swedish, democracy and all that, was there any time when there was corruption, and how did you come out of it?
Yeah, There has been actually a recent case of corruption that I can refer to, which was about some kind of computerized system for the health care that was sold exactly, and the company got information from a couple of civil servants that were on the inside in the administration of the healthcare, that helped them with information so they could manage their bid in a way so they could win it. So that was a recent case. There was also another case, also in healthcare, where the entity that managed the regional healthcare had, all over Sweden, there was a guarantee that people would not wait in line for operations, surgeries, longer than 3 months. If they had to wait longer than 3 months, they would then, the entity itself would have to pay a penalty back to the government. To avoid that, there was a doctor who was a head of a clinic who employed a person who called around to the patients and sort of convinced them that they should say that, oh, it's okay to wait more than 3 months, and, you know, put a cross on a paper and say, I don't need, you know, my operation, I can wait until everyone else is served or whatever. So that was a recent, I mean, was not, there was no money involved in that, but it was this man who wanted, you know, to look better and wanted to get the good result from his own unit instead of getting into the situation when he was responsible for the administration to pay this big fee. So it was, you know, and he was fired directly. The other case, all the 3 people, both the 2 people inside and the company CEO were brought to court, and they got their I think a couple of them went to prison actually. So that is a recent case, but it happens. Definitely it happens. I mean, you know, that's why I say the democracy, the anti-corruption, these are things that are never finished. There are issues with our own democracy in the sense that we now have a party that has been elected, that is a quite nationalistic party, and we have many other parties who don't want to work with them, which will make it very difficult to create a government. And you could say, if 20% of the population has voted for this party, don't they have a right to take their place in politics, to be in the government? Is it right from the other parties to try to maneuver them out? It can be discussed. I cannot have an opinion on that, as I am a civil servant. I serve any government that we get.
Good afternoon. My name is Bahati. I work in the marketing office, St. Paul's University. And I'm very proud of you and the university for 2 Her Excellencies. Power to the women. Clap for us.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what has your experience been as a lady in leadership? Because you hold a very high office and you're a good example to all of us, young and older women. St. Paul's is also very theological. Is there space in Sweden for us theologians? And in the interest of our students, of which I am one, their exchange programs, are there any opportunities now that we have you here and you have the mic and we have you? What are the opportunities for St. Paul's University students? And your interest in Kenya. You're such a big country and you're doing so well. Why are you here? We have Tetra Pak. What do you have of Kenya in your country? Thank you.
I'm actually very happy that you asked the last question. Why are we here? Sweden took part in the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa, and thereby supporting many of the surrounding countries We have had embassies in almost all those countries, and we still have very many embassies in Africa. We took actually active part in that. The government actually smuggled money to ANC and financed a lot of their anti-apartheid movement. We had many of these known people as refugees in Sweden. For us, the independence of African countries have always been very important. We opened up our embassy here very quickly after independence. We are also one of the few countries in the world that still, and we'll see how long that lasts, because we will get a new government, but we are giving 1% of our GDP in international cooperation. And Kenya has been a country that has received Swedish cooperation since its independence, since we came here. So we are here because we have big programs in Kenya, but we have also many other interests that we try to develop. And I think, as I see it, Kenya is a country that should soon graduate out of the international cooperation. Kenya is a country that has all the capacity to stand on its own feet, provided that you get some order on this corruption and all that. There will be money for everything. I mean, we just give a very small piece. If you got all the money that disappears, you will be fine in most things, I believe. There are many more things, actually. For us, we hope to build these foundations to have independent relations that are independent of corporation money. And one of those things that we are very interested in is actually the academic world, student exchange, and other things. We have a program which is managed by the Swedish Institute. Matteo is the point person for that, for master's students. So we send master's students on fully paid scholarships to a number of universities in Sweden every year. We also participate in the Erasmus Plus programs that are active here, and there are often quite many opportunities for this kind of exchange if you have contacts in Sweden. Theology is something that we have at mainly at our biggest universities, some of the very old universities particularly. An interesting fact about Sweden is that we are not very religious. We are quite atheistic, I must say. And there is an interesting chart on where Sweden is situated compared to the rest of the world when it comes to religion and individualism and how we see ourselves, where I would say many African countries, and Kenya with that, is situated here, and we are situated very far out there. We are the outliers. We are very different from, in that point of view, from many other countries in the world, even countries in our European neighborhood. And that makes it sometimes a bit difficult for immigrants that come to Sweden to orient themselves in this sort of godless world that the Swedish society functions in. That doesn't mean that we have no churches, because we have a lot of churches, we have a lot of religions. We actually even had a state church, which was Lutheran, where most of us are Lutherans, until 20 years ago, when the state and the church separated. So that's about that. So I think I covered your questions. Mm-hmm. Anything more? Yeah?
Because of time.
One more. I like the young students to...
Make it very brief, kindly.
I know then I need to leave because I have a dinner that I host at home, but I want the students to get the chance.
All right, thank you. So as a representative of the Schengen countries,
yeah,
do they really have a place where they believe in Africa having its solutions to questions on accountability and democracy or do they have to show them a way to follow? That's my question.
I think that discussion has been, existing for a very long time. Is there a specific form of African democracy? Is democracy, as I see it, a Western sort of school of thought that does not apply to Africa, for example, or other parts of the world? And I think there is quite a lot of literature to read on that. To me, really, I think democracy can be organized in different ways. I think that if you see Kenya, that started out as a country with one centralized government, etc., you have now had the devolution that I think is a fantastic democratic reform because it has brought those who are governing closer to those that they are, to the people. And it's much easier to demand accountability from people that are closer to you. So I think that is a great reform. It also it's a stepping stone to be an MCA, for example. Then you can move up in the ranks, and it's good to have people with earlier experience in the democracy and in the democratic game, so to say, before you come to parliament, maybe. Can you? I believe, of course. Of course, African countries can invent democracy in the way they see it. I doubt, though, that if you ask every Kenyan that they think it's right that people who sit on the top get richer and the people get poorer. But you might think it's a good way of having the country, and that is obviously up to you. But the sort of idea of, for example, corruption, accountability, universal right to vote, I think that can be combined in different ways if you want to, and be made into something that maybe suits you better than the traditional Western form of democracy. But I think that is still underway, if you want to. And I actually believe that countries like Kenya can solve most of its own problems. I don't really see that I'm here in any field to promote any kind of solutions. I think I'm always impressed when I meet my Kenyan counterparts, and I see the solutions to your own challenges are here, among yourselves, and among people who have got this opportunity to study. So I think, there's a heavy burden laying on all you sitting up here for the future to contribute. But I don't think that I could come with a model from France or from Sweden or from the UK, if that matters, and say, look here, it is how you should do it. I think you have learned a lot from the American model. As I've served for a long time in the United States, I recognize many things in the Kenyan way of democracy from the US. Good and less good things. Very costly, for example. The American elections, a lot of money also. I sometimes wonder if you couldn't do it a little bit more on the cheap to put the money into something else, but that's up to you. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. And what a note to end this great afternoon and public lecture on. You are the solution for the problem in Kenya. Another round of applause and appreciation. Her Excellency Catherine, we appreciate that, and certainly that is the message we are taking with us, that we are the solution to our own nation. We are drawing to a close, and I do want to invite, we want to have an appreciation. I want to ask Dr. Muhoho if you can kindly come and briefly give us a vote of thanks
And thereafter, our Vice Chancellor, together with the Deputy Vice Chancellor, will also present a gift before we make the final close. Dr. Mohoho?
Thank you so much. His Excellency, Swedish Ambassador in Kenya and Seychelles, Madam Karen Vicini, your entourage, led by Madam Mudeo Bondo and her colleague, Haipo Ahmed, the St. Paul's University Vice Chancellor, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic Affairs, members of the Board of Management and Senate, faculty who are present here, the student body led by our able chairman present here and your great team, our St. Paul's students who are present here, good evening. I don't want to take a lot of time because it has been said it all, and we want to take this opportunity to appreciate the ambassador for well-presented presentation. It was great, straight to the point, and very clear. And the issue here is how to nurture democracy for development. And you'll agree with me that from what her presentation is that we have more than enough resources in Kenya if we hold our government accountable, if our resources are managed prudently. You have to give an example. Recently, one of our young MP called Bahati, he lost, unfortunately. He was contesting a Madara MP in Nairobi. And he confessed that he has spent close to 50 million shillings to contest for that seat. And I was wondering, given the kind of salary they get, and of course the tax, the maximum he can get for the 5 years is something about 30 million shillings. So the question is, how will he finance the difference? And obviously, it's very clear. That person will have to get other ways to cater the difference and even acquire more. And that's the real difference that we have from a developed country, where the issue of accountability and transparency is at a higher level. So to me, I think, as you've already said, as a young democracy, a lot has been done. But thank you for coming, because I believe we become now ambassadors in that gospel of it is possible as a country to do things better, to hold our leaders accountable, so that this country can get to another level. So, Madam Ambassador, we congratulate you for coming and for your presentation. And Vice Chancellor and Deputy Vice Chancellor, you agree with me, I think, from our Center of Integrity, I think we may need to call some of our leaders, national leaders, and we shall maybe call the ambassador, I believe you'll be present, and come and tell them the truth. Because I believe, if at all we can manage to do that, this country can be a model country in this part of the world. If at all young men can become champions because of innovation, now they're going to the global arena, I believe Kenya can also get to that level. We can become a model country, not be ranked as almost the last in terms of corruption. We can make it, because it's about us and our future and about our life. I happened to visit I visited Europe and America also. And you find those countries, they don't put fences, concrete fences, to secure their homes, because everybody has something to eat. So I agree with you. I think once we reduce that kind of a level of inequality in this country, the resources that we spent in putting up those concrete, the resources that we spent in doing roads, and after 2 months that road is spoiled, we can spend in doing other things. You have already said that 60% of our national resources, we spend it in paying loans. 20% of those resources get in people's pocket. Why did not mention that out of those 6% of those resources, maybe 20% of that resource, going now to 40%, get to people's pockets. So you can imagine if that 40% can get into development, we can go far. So we thank you so much for that very able presentation. We want to take also this opportunity to thank our students, particularly those who managed to ask very good questions, very powerful questions to Her Excellency Ambassador. And thank you, Madam Ambassador, for really responding to those questions in a very able manner. So, as she said, all this is about you. We are just empowering you to become ambassadors to transform this country. And with those few remarks, we want to thank the organizing committee that has planned for all this. May God bless you so much. And also we also thank God for our students. I believe, apart from the learning, please ensure that you also spread that gospel to your friend, to your neighbor, and so on and so on. So may God bless you so much. And we want also now take the opportunity, using our tradition of appreciating our visitors, clapping, you know how to, we're going to use 7 factorial this time around. Let us prepare ourselves to appreciate her ambassador. Let us start 7 factorial, yeah? Okay.
Thank you very much, Dr. Muhoho, who is our Dean, Faculty of Business, Computer Science, and Communication Studies. I'd now like to invite our Vice Chancellor, accompanied with the Deputy Vice Chancellor, to make this appreciation on behalf of all of us. And immediately after, Reverend Kirienye will come and do the closing prayer. And after that, we will allow our guests to leave. And for all of us who are in here, tea will be served outside the amphitheater. Thank you for having made this afternoon a brilliant one. Thank you.
Her Excellency, in the tradition of our world, when guests came home, they did not return empty-handed. So we send you back with something.
Oh my.
And we are open to you opening it, if that becomes possible.
Yeah. Thank
Then
you.
you can.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much. Oh, look here. Oh, thank you. Fantastic. Now I need to speak 2 more hours. Thank you so much.
You've really toured our country, and
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll be doing more tours.
Yes.
Please protect your nice hair with the umbrella.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you so much. It actually rained in Nairobi this morning. Thank you. Very useful. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Let's help you with that.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I can have it.
Just in case I go with the organ.
All right. Thank you. Let us rise, stand, and have our final prayer. Let us pray. Almighty Father, we want to thank you for being with us throughout this public lecture. Your presence has been in this place from the start to the end. And we want to say thank you. We thank you for the ambassador of Sweden to Kenya, Her Excellency Caroline Vicini, for her sacrifice and the contribution she has made to this great university today. We thank you, Father, for this great university and its leadership. Lord, as we leave this place, let us go out there and be the salt and the light of the world. May we put into practice what we have discussed and learned. Help us to make a difference in this world for the glory of your name. As we depart, may you dismiss us with your love and your care. And all this we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
We will have a photo session with the board of members, board of management and Senate members, together with the student leadership outside the central administration block. And so as Her Excellency leaves, kindly let's make our way there. And for everybody else, thank you for coming. And for all of us, staff and students, tea is served outside the amphitheater. God bless you, and we hope to see you soon.